Let me begin by introducing our three speakers. I'll begin by the gentleman in the middle here, Dr. Jorge Carrion. He specializes in pelvic, cosmetic, and reconstructive surgery. He brings us a unique skill set with more than 25 years of international experience to his current role as a medical expert for the state of California. His range of expertise incorporates medical practice management, program development, operations and leadership, and government liaison. Since 2002, Dr. Carrion has served as president of International Health Consultants in Los Angeles. He also founded Clínica El Golf, a private hospital located in Lima, Peru, which is his home country. In November 2008, Dr. Carrion was appointed member of the Medical Board of California by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Dr. Carrion is a member of the Latino, the college's Long-Range Planning Advisory Council and our Latino Leadership Policy Institute. For those in the audience who are on staff or on faculty here, you may know Dr. Carrion as Emilio's dad. And Dr. Carrion's son, Emilio, transferred to Marymount, I think, 3 years ago, and had a very successful career. He graduated last year with a baccalaureate, and he is now studying psychology at the University of San Francisco. So you can be a proud papa. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Carrion to Marymount. Dr. Thelma Melendez de Santa Anna is the Senior Policy Advisor for Mayor Eric Garcetti in the area of education and workforce development. She previously served as Assistant Secretary for Elementary and Secondary Education in the United States Department of Education, appointed by President Barack Obama. Dr. Melendez has also served as a superintendent of 2 California school districts, Santa Ana Unified and Pomona Unified. She is president of the Association of Latino School Administrators and Superintendents, is on the board of directors of West Ed, and is a trustee of the J. Paul Getty Trust. Dr. Melendez earned a PhD at USC and an honorary doctorate from Pepperdine University, as well as her Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from UCLA. Dr. Melendez is a member of our Latino Leadership and Policy Institute Advisory Board. And for those of you who know Marymount, Dr. Melendez goes in our Hall of Fame. She's one of our very first guests to come here for the very first time, to get lost, but to still be early. How many of us have gotten lost coming to Marymount for the first time? But Dr. Melendez was early. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Melendez to Marymount. Many of you may know the gentleman on my far left, Bonnie Garcia. He's a member of our Board of Trustees and has been an instrumental part of resourcing and supporting our transformation in recent years, and also has been a very special advisor to myself and others as we launch our work with Latino Leadership Studies. Bonnie is the managing partner of Garcia, Hernandez, Suani, and Bermudez. He has extensive experience representing school districts, community college districts, cities, and other governmental entities. Garcia has served on the boards of the Skirball Institute of American Values and of the Advancement Project, a public interest litigation group that promotes equal opportunity in American political and educational institutions. A magna cum laude graduate of Loyola Marymount University, Bonnie earned his law degree at Harvard University, and as I mentioned, he's been a longtime member of the Board of Trustees here at Marymount, a very good friend and advisor. Welcome back to our campus, Bonnie Garcia. So as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna begin with the one prepared question, or one question our folks knew about before they drove up the hill to campus here today. And the question is very straightforward, and I'll ask Bonnie to begin our conversation tonight. I've asked our panelists just to think of just one formative leadership experience that they've had at any point in their life from which they still draw lessons today, from which they still draw leadership lessons today. So Bonnie, I know you had a long ride from Pasadena.
Well, okay.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking baseball.
Okay.
When I got out of law school, I started work for a law firm in Beverly Hills, and in Los Angeles they had a lawyers' league, and I was the baby lawyer first year, and you know, it's like anything else. You're the new kid, and they had a softball team. They had a lawyers' league softball team, and so I went and sat on the bench, and it was a very interesting experience that first season. each law firm fielded a team, and you went and you played, and okay, or didn't play. I noticed that the way the team was being managed, that whenever a partner showed up, even if it was in the middle of the game, put him in right away, got to play. And we had a horrible year. In fact, we had a horrible years. We had, I think, almost a perfect season in perfect losses. A fella who was the manager of the team went off to New York the next year for the program in LLM, tax program, great. And I became the manager of the team. And I go, okay, how do we take this team that's been perfect and make it perfect in a different way? And one of the things I learned to do was, well, the first thing I said was, if people are going to come, everybody gets to play as much as possible. So instead of the old way it was when you were a kid, or where the best kids played and everybody else sat on the bench, I said, everybody plays. So there were 7 innings, and I said, everybody plays 6 innings, everybody sits out 1. And I worked out a schedule where they could do that. The second thing is that lesson I learned is that even when people are doing what they really like to do, you have to call them up the night before and make sure they show up the next morning. So, I mean, you can't assume, I could never assume that people will do what they really like to do, which is kind of a lot of lessons for me today. The thing that I liked about that was that we got some good results because people got used to playing, because you can't have everybody going all over the place. If there's a set rotation, they got used to playing their positions, and they got good at it. So the next season, we had 2 wins, but we had 5 1-1 losses. So okay, that works. Season after that, we were in C League. We actually won the division. So we went 9-2, flipped it, and then everybody got cocky and they said, okay, we bad. Let's go up to the next level. But one of the things I was learning is that even in that year, okay, we had a philosophy that I had actually carried over from Harvard of everybody gets to be the Chevy player of the game. So as we won, and we won regularly, and over the next 10 years that we stayed together, we went from the bottom in C League to the playoffs in A League at the end of that time. And we got a lot of trophies, but it's like that. You got yours. You're not qualified. You get that. The next person got it, so that everybody was just looking at the end of 10 years. Why do I have the one we got from C League? And so that was my leadership story. And what I hadn't mentioned was that when I was at Harvard, we had a softball team. Oh no, actually it was a football team there, intramural football, and it was co-ed, and that was a perfect team, because almost perfect. We went 29-1 in 3 years at law school, winning everything left and right. But another point is, people really remember the mess ups, because we're on the last game of the last season, our 3rd year. We're on the goal line. Time is running out. We got time for 3 plays. The quarterback said, I'm going, hey, look, we just ran over everybody to get here. Let's just run over them, just get it over the end zone. Quarterback goes, no, let's throw a pass. Oh, my God. Throws a pass, intercepted in the end zone. 30 years later, everybody remembers that, right? How's Mike doing? You mean that guy that threw that? The point was that there was some lessons in terms, I look at sports. There were things that we did right on that team, which was everybody gets to play. Everybody gets what we got, the chance for glory, and we literally would come up. Nobody was not valuable. We were a co-ed team in an all-male league. What they didn't know was that Shirley Zanton was an all-American softball player, from college. And the other one, who later became a clerk to Supreme Court Justice, Kathy Smalley, was real small, dainty. Everybody would just ignore her. And the standard play was, okay, Kathy, go to the end zone, just wait there. It was good for a touchdown every game. So the point, though, is everybody's valuable. Everybody has something to offer. If you give people the chance to be the player of the game, Chevy player of the game, they'll come through for you. It's not so much a matter of not only how you think of your people, but how everybody else does. And I like to be underestimated. So that team at the law school and that team in the law firms, those give me my kind of management lessons today.
Thank you, Bonnie. And so you certainly have applied at the board level as well here at the university. Dr. Carrion, something from your past, a leadership experience that you may still apply today.
Sure. I am going to share with you two short stories that really made me who I am today. In high school, my father, for some reason, he placed me in a military academy, which I think was very good for me, because changed my view in life. Prior to that, I was in a Jesuit school, which always also, they were very strict. But my father thought that you need something else, military academy. I said, okay. In the military academy, every Saturday, we went what they call like a war games that we accustomed. And I remember something that still is with me clearly. I was crossing a river with a rifle here, and the water was hitting my nose. And I say, I'm going to drown. And the other guy, the captain, said, move, move, move. And I passed the river. And on the other side, he says, come on here. Yes, sir. He said, look, I want you to remember something for the rest of your life. The only thing you cannot do is get pregnant. The other thing you can do. I say, sure, sir. That's one thing. And the other thing that happened in my life is when I became a resident on obstetrics and gynecology in a Jewish hospital in Kansas City. I'm talking in the mid-77, 78. And in Kansas City, there were not too many Latin boys. That means I was one of the few Latin boys. And I thought that, hey, here is a Latino in a Jewish hospital. Basically, I can do whatever I want. I am a Latino boy, okay? A Latino boy, let me tell you. My chief called me one day and he said, George, look, you are this, they value you in 12 qualifications, and 11 of those I was in bad shape. Only one that I was a clean guy, shaved and all that. And he says, look, you have 3 more months. And if you don't change, you're going to be out. And if your residence, if they kick you out of your residence, it's very difficult to another institution to take you. And also, I remember something that is very clear to me. He says, George, sometimes you think that you know things that you don't know. And learning is a very painful process, especially when you are young, okay? Because you think that you know, and sometimes you don't. That is extremely important. When I became a chief resident, I had under my control approximately 18 doctors. That lesson for me was excellent because teaching me that the learning process is painful and it's slow, take you years. Every day you learn. In other words, you need to be a student of life because every day you learn. Sometimes good things, sometimes bad things. Sometimes you learn more from the bad things. those two things in my life, it just basically make me who I am today.
Dr. Melendez, thank you, Jorge. So we have baseball, football, is that pregnancies?
Is that how you went into gynecology?
Military school. Dr. Melendez, something from which you drew a leadership lesson that maybe you still apply today.
I'd love to. You know, a friend of mine taught me a term. It's occupation. And occupation is that you are passionate about the occupation that you're involved in. And my career, all 31 years, has been in public education. So I'm going to share with you why it's my occupation, which is my leadership story. First of all, it starts in 1963, 64 school year, actually 50 years ago, when I was a kindergartner in Montebello Unified School District. And I started school, and I was the only English language learner in my class. And I remember I had an amazing teacher. Her name was Mrs. Silverman. And she never made me feel like I was any less than the other kids. She made me feel like I was important. She took me aside. She explained things to me. She was amazing. She even selected me to be in the district newsletter, that my mother went outside and picked them up, the kids threw them out, as they were walking home. And we still have a copy of that newsletter. She made such an impact in my life. I dreamt about someday, having such an impact in the life of a child. Then I went to first grade. And my first grade teacher actually lived around the block from our home in Montebello. And where Mrs. Silverman had, done so much to support me, this teacher put me in the back of the class. And I remember sitting in the back table watching all the other students read. And I was doing the alphabet all year long. And so my grandmother was a teacher in Mexico, and so I knew I knew how to read in Spanish. So I went home, and my parents, we talked, and because I tell them I want to be in the book on Cherry Street. I still remember the names of the books. And so they went and they spoke to the teacher, and she says, "Oh no, that's where she belongs. She's learning English." So then they went to the principal. And the principal actually was still a principal when I started teaching in the school district, so it was very interesting. And he said the same thing, that this is where she needs to stay. So my parents had always been advocates for me, so the following year they put me in another school. And the other school that I went to, lo and behold, all of a sudden I'm in the second highest reading group. I'm not a genius. It just meant that all along I could do it. But they had such low expectations for me. Whereas my kindergarten teacher had such high, my first grade teacher had very low. Then you fast forward to high school, junior year. And this is I bet there's, about 5 or 6 people in the room will have a very similar story. Junior year, right after the PSAT. You go in, you see your counselor, right? And I remember walking in, and there's my folder closed in front of me, right? And the counselor says, "So what do you want to do? Where do you want to go to college?" And I said, "I want to go to UCLA." And she looked at me, and she said, "Absolutely not. You'll never make it there. There's no way you're going to make it." And I was shocked, because I really wanted to go there. That was my dream. But I am the oldest female. I have a younger brother who's 4 years younger than me and a sister who's 6 years younger than me. My parents, I'm a very proud daughter of Mexican immigrants. And so I said to the counselor, "So how about Cal State Los Angeles?" And she says, "Oh no, you'll never make it there. You need to go to a community college," which I think is great. I think community colleges are great. But when you have a dream, you need to go where your heart tells you to go. So I went home, I talked to my parents, to both of them. And this was around the same time in the 70s. This was 1975. And my parents said, well, you're the oldest female, and, you know, you're going to get married anyway. So you might as well, you know, you might as well go to junior college. And they really wanted me to be a legal secretary. And we need to save the money for your brother, because he wants to go to USC and become a dentist. Footnote, he never did. He ended up, he's an architect, so it was far away from dentistry as possible. So I was discouraged, but yet I didn't want to give up. So I applied to Cal State Los Angeles. I got a job at Del Taco, opening crew, there in Montebello. Bought a Datsun B210 and drove to Cal State LA because it was a commuter college. And I was there a year, and in the summer of my first year, I happened to have a professor named Professor Ray Rocco. And I guess he was an assistant professor at the time and needed to make more money. So he was teaching a class at Cal State LA in the summer, political science. So after the first exam, I went to see him. And I said to him, look, I said, I'm going to ask you a question. You've seen my exams. You've watched me participate in class. So what do you think? You're a professor at UCLA. Do you think I could make it at UCLA? And he said to me almost exactly what my counselor said, only shorter. He said, absolutely. Absolutely. So I went home, and this time I was smarter. I talked to my mother first. And I convinced her that I would, I would work, that I'd commute to UCLA, that I would find a job, and that I wouldn't take any money from my brother. And also the fact that they realized I was a terrible typist, for those of you who know what that means. So that sort of did away with my legal secretary career. We talked to my father, and he agreed, and I applied, and I got into UCLA. And I don't say it to brag, but more just to illustrate a point. I graduated cum laude from UCLA, and I almost didn't get to go. So my occupation is that my life's work is to ensure that students like me have the opportunity to make life choices, to decide whether they want to go to community college, but it's their decision, to decide whether they want to go to USC, UCLA, wherever, Harvard. It's up to them that they have that opportunity, and that's been my life's work. So my leadership story is about whenever I'm involved in the work, it's always about how is that going to impact the lives of the children that I've been so blessed to have served.
Hear, hear. Great connection between your hometown and this university. You may know our founding sisters are in Montebello, the Religious of Sacred Heart of Mary. Oh, really? Yeah, that's where they're located. That's where their headquarters is in the Western Province. We often in class talk about leadership, right? And usually the biggest question that comes forward is nature versus nurture. And the question is, are people born leaders, or can people become leaders? Is it black and white? Are you born a leader and you never can become a leader, or is it something that can be nurtured? Mr. Garcia. We'll get you the microphone.
I believe you can become a leader. Obviously, there are some people that they call natural leaders. It comes easily to them. But I think you can absolutely become leaders. And in fact, the value of modeling behavior is so that others can learn how to lead and how to get the thing done. So I'm an absolute believer in that training, skill sets, things like, oh, don't do it that way. I used to call myself Mr. Pothole because I would fall in every single pothole because I never had a mentor. You know, I was a pothole magnet, just, and so I never had a mentor, and the only mentor in business or in law or anything, the only mentor I ever had was my professor at a Jesuit, because I went to Loyola Marymount University. So my passion is like, okay, turn around and mentor others, so that you can go, no, there's a pothole over there, and boy, it's pretty nasty. It's really muddy at the bottom. So definitely, I'm a nurture person.
Dr. Carrion, you must hear this a lot in the medical field: nature or nurture.
I think it's a combination. All of us, we have a quality to be a leader. It's just how you develop your strength and you recognize if you want to be a leader. Once you want to be a leader, one of the qualities of a leader is the character. This institution gives a character formation that I was very impressed the other day that I was talking with Mr. Brophy. The character should be with some humility. And humility is something that is going to bring a trust from the rest of the people. Because if see you like that, they're going to trust you more, and you really became a leader. Also, you need to recognize your strengths. The strength is what you do well, and you need to develop those things that you do well. Also, you need to recognize your weakness. But the weakness, you can work somehow, some way, that they can be irrelevant for you. For example, my case. I am not very good in information technology. Why? Because when I studied my medical school, everything was books. Now, today, you are studying the internet. That means, for me, technology, I am, but I am not there. And what I do, I have a very good secretary who does the work for me. It's just that simple. The other quality that I always tell people is you need to find a coach or a mentor who is going to give you some guidance where you really want to go. That's extremely important. In my case, I had 2 or 3 mentors that really give me some guidance to the way who I am today. There is so many qualities that a leader has, but I think those 4 or 5 that I mentioned, for me, are the more important. And also, leaders always they are looking for new leaders. That is the vision of a good leader. Because one day you are going to stop being a leader for some reason, and somebody is going to take your position.
Thank you. We hear about potholes, and so our students, graduate students, we talk about practical wisdom. The practical wisdom you pick up as you hit those potholes and you see the patterns. We also read about humility. We just read a book by Jim Collins called Good to Great, where he identifies level 5 leadership and humility. Dr. One, is your thoughts, nature versus nurture?
You know, I think I probably agree that it's both, because part of it is that whether or not you want to be a leader, you know, you really have to make a choice in some ways, because becoming a leader or being a leader involves a lot of responsibility. You're responsible for those you lead. You're responsible to be the best leader you can be. So that means growing, learning, having people who tell you the truth. I think that's really important. You know, when I think of leadership and I think about, you know, it's about inspiring people. It's about leading and it's about managing. And each one has a different skill set. And it's, knowing that you need to develop each one of those skill sets. And, to be able to be that leader that you need to be. I read this article called Glass Ceiling, Sticky Floors. And it's about women in leadership. And it talks about that what women struggle with is not just the glass ceiling, but it's the sticky floor, which is the things that we ourselves say to ourselves. Oh, well, we're not good enough, or no, we're not ready, or no, my time hasn't come yet. And the article talks about how we ourselves, as women, sometimes sabotage our own careers. And that's why I was very lucky. I had some amazing female mentors who, nope, Thelma, keep moving forward. Got to have the courage, and that was very, very impactful for me in my career.
Thank you. One of the other readings our graduate students did this spring was a book by Howard Gardner called Leading Minds, the study of leadership. Let's take just a moment on an organizational behavior, organizational theory question. What he posited in his book was that the leader can be sophisticated, can be great, and can be effective, but there's really a need for the organization to be able to the organization needs to be ready to hear the story that the leader is sharing or inspiring by. Bonnie, what are your experiences with that? Observations on organizations and their reaction to leadership, and what needs to be, what makes things fertile for an organization and a leader?
Well, a couple of things. For me, the most important thing, if I were to say, take my own law firm, for example, what's the most important thing about our law firm and what makes us different from anybody else? I would say our people. That's the first thing. And then in terms of going and hiring people, I like to say I want to hire somebody better than me. Somebody that's faster than me, has better credentials than I do. And when I make that, and an important part of that is I run pretty fast. So, come on. And part of that also is just they have to want to run, that not be tired running, that they have to enjoy running. That gets back to the notion of that the law practice has to be an occupation. I like that. I'm going to use that. There's no such thing as plagiarism with lawyers. You're out of luck. And they have to have that passion. And so, come on, run with me, and you'll fit in. And you're with the right team that belongs. If you're enjoying the run and not getting depressed and broken down by the run. But perhaps the most important thing from a leadership perspective about the organization, and there's three. One is everybody has a story. And I think leadership has to be willing to listen to everybody's story. They all have stories. And if you give them a chance to tell their story, you'll learn a lot. And then you'd be amazed. People like to talk. I love to talk. But I've learned to like to listen. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is within the framework of a community, in this case lawyers, I like to support the continuation of the story. So one of the management things that we do, leadership things we do, we had an annual retreat. We have an annual retreat, and we constantly, I like to ask the question, what do you want for yourself? That's a big question. Are you passing? And I'm not asking for an answer. I'm just saying I really want you to constantly be thinking, what do you want for yourself? That means you got to be in touch with your story. What's your story? How's it going to end? What's the next chapter, right? And the other part from a culture of an organization is, and how can we help you get there? Right? Those are big, open-ended questions, and I think the successful organizations are the ones that are willing to ask. I had a consultant who was saying, are you crazy? You're going to ask everybody what they want? What if they don't want the law? What if they want to go someplace else? I go, that's great. I want to help them get there. They could turn into clients. That's great. I want folk to know, and it'll be great for our firm. So I'm not afraid of that question. And I'm also not afraid of, what do you need from me in order to get there? So to recap, I guess the quality of the people, and that you listen to them. You hear their stories, and then you embrace their story and support the continuation of the story. Story.
Leadership is storytelling. Absolutely.
Hearing.
Story hearing. Dr. Carrion.
One of the main qualities of a leader is credibility. If you have credibility, people are going to trust you, and they are going to follow the suggestion that you are going to make. The other issue that also is extremely important is the communication that you should have with your peers. This is something that sometimes we don't do very well. And as he says, it's extremely important to listen everybody. And sometimes I listen more the people who disagree with me than the people who agree with me. Because I am going to learn more from those people. And I listen from the CEO to the security guy. Because sometimes the security guy is going to give ideas that are very good. You need to pay attention to them. I think the better the communication, your leadership skills are going to be better understand.
Thank you. And certainly our students are studying about credibility theory. There's writing now on this, and the idea that you gain credibility by being in the organization, grounded in it, and being a good listener as well. Dr. Melendez.
Going into an organization, what I've learned is you need space. You need time to learn the organization before you make decisions. So I'm a big fan of an entry plan. And so
What does that mean?
Entry plan is a plan. It's a 90-day plan. In Pomona, when I came in as superintendent, and then when I went in U.S. Department of Ed, they were 90 days. In Santa Ana, I needed 100 days. It was a bigger district. And what it does is that you set up goals of exactly what my colleagues have talked about. What is it that I want to learn about? I call it listening. It's listening, learning, and leading. So you listen and you learn. So what I look for are what are the things that I need to know about this organization. So each point of the entry plan, always number one, know the Board of Education, your bosses, and you go through, set up meetings and times with them, listen, ask them questions, set up protocols for how you're going to interact with them. Next, a goal would be understanding student achievement in the district, and who do I need to meet with, and who do I need to talk to, and what community members. And then understanding when it comes to community perception of the school district, meeting with community members, parents. And then, when it comes to discipline, suspensions, safety issues, and then who do I need to meet with? And this is made very public, and then I spend 3 months, and it's sort of gives you the space not to make any decisions, because then how do you know if they're the right decision? So this allows time to meet with everyone, to listen, and at the end of the 90 days, then I present a plan to the Board of Education and to the school community saying, okay, these are the things that I've heard, these are the things that you've all said, and these are the things that we need to address. And that gives me sort of the political cover to have that time to really learn the organization, as my colleagues have shared. And then it also allows me time to reflect and to plan and to get to know the people in the organization. Because in a way, you're an anthropologist. You have to figure out, who's who, and, who is going to be honest with you and who isn't, and who can you trust and who can you not trust, and all of those things. And then it also gives you a chance. I always felt it was very important to include the community and the parents. So it gives you time. I held community meetings all across the school district. So we can have opportunities for parents to tell us about the school district and what they want to see, and what things are going well and what things need to be changed. So that's how I sort of go into organizations.
So it's, again, an emphasis on having the community watch you learn. So leadership is learning. But again, the motif across the board was listening as well. Listening, learning, giving yourself time. In March of about 11 months ago, the university, Marymount, California University, was designated as a Hispanic Serving Institution, HSI. And so in terms of credibility, that was the first time I said, okay, now we need to reach out to some of the Latino leaders across the state. What HSI meant, Hispanic Serving Institution, meant was that we serve at least 35% of our students come from Latino background. And so last summer, with my colleague, Mr. Garcia, spent a lot of time throughout the state with municipal leadership associations, educational leadership associations. And what we came to find was that the phenomena was that certainly in public schools, Latino students are a majority. Certainly within our state, Latino population is a plurality. And yet, even though this is the case, for some odd reason, the number of electeds in some of these organizations and administrators who were appointed, the numbers were going in the other direction, less and less Latinos. So one of the things I'm curious about is what your thoughts are. What is it about the current situation in any of your sectors that might contribute to this phenomena? And then, of course, we'll address what could change about this. What is contributing to a phenomena where perhaps there are not enough Latinos going into leadership roles in these different sectors?
Okay, that's an easy question. I'll pass.
I pass.
I need time to think about that.
What is your experience after some
I
decades
think,
in California?
I think it's a combination of factors. In medicine today, we have a tremendous shortage of doctors around the country. And the shortage is worse in Latino doctors. I am a board member of the Latino Physicians of California, and I know the numbers very well. Today in California, we are a total of approximately 127,000 doctors. Of those, we are close to 2,500 Latino doctors. Latino means
Everybody.
no. Yeah, but doctors today, we consider Latino the ones who speak Spanish fluently. Because to try to attract patients today, everybody in their market, they say, we speak Spanish in the office. They don't speak Spanish. Okay? It's just his culture and language is not Spanish. Now, why is that shortage of doctors? If we consider that the population in California is approximately 40% Latinos, and we have less than 1% of doctors Latinos. The factors are social and economical. And these days, the profession of being a doctor is not like accustomed to be when I took my medical school. I think the prestige of the white coat is almost gone. And I need to say this because it's true. And I feel this because I've been practicing medicine for the last 35 years. And let me give you a story that I think is going to tell you exactly what happened. When I arrived to California in 1978, I needed some money, and I went to Lloyd's Bank. At that time, Lloyd's Bank was here. And I was received by the CEO, doctor, what do you need? Sit down, what do you need? I said, okay, give me this loan. No problems, doctor, the loan. Okay, a couple of years ago, I went to a bank, and I was in line, okay, waiting for me. Somebody was waiting for me. That shows you that my profession, and only I can talk about my profession, is not what I accustomed to be before. Now, a third party is taking control what should be in the hands of the doctors. And I'm talking about HMOs, PPOs, these organizations that basically they're controlling and tell the doctor exactly what to do. That the typical example, for example, is my son. My son, always my dream was that he became a doctor. He says, Dad, no, like you, I'm going to be a psychologist. He's going to be a psychologist. He doesn't want to go in this medicine that is just handled by politicians, by third-party people, but not by the doctor, who should be the one who controls the profession. And this has today tremendous influence in young people. And young people are smart. They say, well, why am I going to need to go through so many years of school for rich like this? No.
So different choices, different options.
Yeah.
Dr. Melendez.
You know, it's interesting. California has 1,000, and I'll speak in terms of in education, what it, in terms of superintendents. Okay, there's 1,000 school districts in California, and 24% are Latinos that are superintendents. Of that, even of course, a smaller amount are female Latinas. At a national level, there is 2% of the superintendents at a national level are Latinas. So it's a very, very small number. And again, I think in response to that, here's a profession where the majority of the people that go into the profession are female, and yet the majority of the CEOs are male. And my opinion, there are a lot of different reasons for that, for why that happens. I'll just give you an example. In my life, in my career, I put my career first for 30 years. And last year, after I spent 2 years in Santa Ana, and it was the school district, as I shared earlier, that I had planned and trained for my entire career. It was exactly, it was the 6th largest school district in the state, 94% Latino, 82% English language learners or former English language learners total. It was just everything I wanted. Only that I lived in a guest house in North Tustin, and my home and my husband were in Eagle Rock. My parents are, getting older, in their 80s. And we went on a cruise last year and the holidays, and I realized, wow, I haven't spent an entire week with my husband for 2 years, and my dad and mom were very frail. So I stopped and I said, something needs to change. And so I made a decision that was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life. And I sat with one of my mentors, Laura Schwam, who's a recently retired superintendent of Garden Grove. And I sat there and I said, this is what my heart tells me. And my grandmother always says, do what your heart tells you. No tengas miedo a hacer lo que dice tu corazón. And I said, Laura, but if I go now, it's only been 2 years, and they're going to say, that I left because of this or because of that, which isn't the truth. And she says, Thelma, do you really think that 1 year more is going to change their mind? And meanwhile, you're going to be a year that you're without your family, and something could happen to your parents, and you'll never forgive yourself? So I say that because it's really about the choices that you make, And I think for women, it's a really difficult choice. Sometimes it's choices that we make, and sometimes it's choices that are made for us. When I left that position, the person who came after me, male, made $35,000 more than I. Just like that. And you can look at the women's superintendent's salaries compared to the men. And so a lot of women say, why do it? I'm not going to get the salary. It may not be worth it. But there are a lot who do feel, it's important, and that's our organization that I'm a part of, ALAS. We have a Superintendent's Academy, and we train Latinos, Latinas across the country. It's one cohort. And we mentor them and encourage them. We build their skill set, and they have people to talk to encourage them to go into the leadership positions. But it's not an easy thing to do.
This is a big topic, and I think there are a number of reasons for this. One of them I'll call the Columbia Dam theory of pipeline and replacement, and that is that the Latino community doesn't yet have enough salmon going up the river, because it's the numbers. It's a numbers issue. We do not have the graduates from the community colleges, from the colleges going on to graduate school, and you need numbers, just sheer numbers. I got invited to a panel discussion by the Daily Journal. This was about 15 years ago, and said, "Oh, Mr. Garcia, can you come and do a panel?" I go, "Where?" It's at the Mondrian Hotel in Beverly Hills. I go, "That's cool. Hey, who else is going to be on the panel?" "Oh yeah, we got all these other people." And I said, "Okay, you ready to go?" And it turned out that it was, and it's going to be totally confidential. I go, "How can you have a confidential panel discussion?" And what it was a closed room where they had the managing partners of the largest firms in the country, and then they had the owners of minority-owned firms, a Korean-owned firm, Japanese. I mean, we were the rogues gallery of law firms owned by minorities. The facilitator they brought down, it was really first-class presentation by that newspaper. They brought down a facilitator from San Francisco, and the first question he asked is, "Why are you here?" The managing partners of the massive law firms, all white males, lined up, sitting in the same side of the table, went down and said, "Well, diversity is very important, and of course it's a big issue, and our law firm wants to be yada, 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 yada." And then went around and got the flip side. "Well, it's the very thing in the glass ceiling and this and that, and there's racism all over the place." And then they got to me, and it turned out I was the only Latino in the room. And I said, "Well, I'm here because it's a very important topic, obligatory comments. But I said, but the reason I'm really here is because I thought I'd help those guys out," pointing at the managing partners, "because I've fired more Mexicans than they have combined." What? And I said, "It's a numbers game. O'Melveny, you guys hire 52 lawyers every year. 10 years from now, you're going to make 2 of them partners. Okay? Same thing with you from, Brobeck and you. Between you, you hire 1,000 lawyers. How many are Latino? And you're crying now because 10 years later, you don't have Latino partners. So you hire 52 white guys, and at the end of 10 years, you got 2. You hire 1 Mexican, and you're crying because you don't have one at the end of 10 years. I mean, and by the way, the one you hired is Super Mex, and he doesn't need you. So it's, at one level, it's about the numbers. And it's what you call the standard for admittance to the club. We had a big tussle at Harvard back in the 90s because we had a professorship open over federal courts. It was on federal courts, and it was Professor Ogletree was in that position. And he recommended that Deborah Ramirez, who was my classmate, take his place at Harvard Law School, tenure track. And they didn't hire her. And everybody was going, what? She's a Harvard Law grad, she's brilliant herself, she doesn't get to stop. Instead, what they did was they changed the description of the course, and they hired some guy who'd written some articles and clerked for the circuit and DC circuit, and they put him in that slot. And I wrote a letter of outrage, and I said, what the real problem is not that we are given an opportunity to succeed, because plenty of us are given opportunities to succeed. The top half of Latino bell curve is given plenty of opportunities to succeed. It's that our bell curve middle isn't given opportunity to fail on the same terms and conditions as everybody else. You impose entry-level requirements on us to say, I'm not going to hire anybody unless I know they're going to make partner downstream. You don't put those on everybody else. You give everybody else an opportunity to fail. You don't give us an opportunity to fail. So I think there's a lot of that going around. There's so much fear about hiring a person of color and being afraid they don't succeed. And then what you have to do when they don't succeed, which is to fire them. The second part of that is the fear of mentoring. I remember when I was at a big law firm and I was on the, doing the interview rounds, I wanted to go find out what was the reaction to people coming in. I remember we had this kid, brilliant, great credentials, but he had a fishy handshake. Okay? But he didn't give off corporate cues. Now, I'll tell you about that fishy handshake. There's a part of Mexico where they have fishy handshakes. That's just the way they are, okay? That doesn't mean they can't litigate. That doesn't mean they can't be great lawyers. It's just, you want somebody, in the American culture, white culture, we want, damn fine to meet you. And he's really going, I'm touching you. And that doesn't come off right. And so he get knocked down for that. So in the interviewing process, we have a miscommunication in culture. Our definition of what's successful, we give people who have that square-jawed lantern, And I was successful because I gave off those cues. Well, the bad news was I had gray hair early, and everybody thought I had more experience than I actually had. So that was another pothole. Okay, lesson number 1, Grecian formula early and often. So I guess if I were to be systematic, I think we're seeing barriers at a lot of levels. In the community college system, we know that there are barriers because we're not hiring adjunct professors. The hiring is in the control of faculty committees where they're hiring people like themselves. And they're coming from a non-diverse employment base. And, everybody, it's the world. You hire who you know. And those adjuncts are the ones that get the permanent positions. The permanent positions are the ones that become the deans. And so for a lot of reasons, we're not getting the base numbers, okay? going up against the dam. And you need those numbers because you're going to have slippage, you're going to have loss. Our numbers are so low that when we have loss, it's almost catastrophic. You know, we don't have enough. I'm being very general, but how do you break through? We have the problem. How do you break through to that to have people say, well, wait a minute, I really want that person on my team. And then, of course, the mentoring problem, you know, where the only time I ever picketed a place was when they were challenging the California Club because they didn't allow women or people of color to be members. And the state dealt with that issue by passing a law saying you couldn't get a liquor license. And they changed their policies real fast. But before then, I remember how difficult it was being, you know, always the first associate, saying, no, how do you say to, you know, the big guy, eek, you know, I'm really uncomfortable walking into this place that doesn't see me. You know, first off, I wasn't being really invited. I was being invited because it was the thing to be done. But was I really getting an opportunity to establish a relationship with, you know, the big dog? The answer, no. So, I mean, again, it's big topic. So
Well,
I didn't mean to go so long.
For those of you who are here for the first time, it's a classic sort of evening at Marymount with our series. Lots of straight talk, personal sharing, and I think the audience really is getting a sense of some of the conflicts and challenges that we have. One of the on this topic, one of the questions that comes from the audience is the following: culturally, Hispanics tend to have great distance between themselves and those in power. They are not as politically engaged as some other cultures. What ideas do you have to better engage Latinos in the political process in their local communities, thus minimizing scandals such as Bell, the city of Bell, and other Hispanic majority cities? What ideas do you have to better engage Latinos in the political process in their local communities? Any thoughts?
Okay. Who wants to go first?
I am not a politician.
You're not a politician.
At law school, I always sat in the back and passed a lot. Yeah, the first thing I'd like to say is that there are no more scandals in Latino-run cities than there are in white-run cities.
I'm sure that's true.
Okay, I mean, so, and in particular with what's been going down in San Diego, for instance, there's a crisis there where the DA labored mightily and brought forth a mouse. And the Republican DA went after school district board members on Form 700 violations, tried to call it bribery. And these are, oh, you didn't report your gifts, which are usually handled by the Fair Political Practices Commission. And has gotten one misdemeanor conviction out of that at the end of 3 years. But did not prosecute Republicans and white electeds with just as bad or worse records. Okay, so that was a lot of fun. She lost the race for mayor, by the way. And surprise, surprise, she was running for mayor, which brings up the other piece of hypocrisy, which is that she's under investigation now by the FBI for taking $200K from a source south of the border. Okay, hey, but I don't feel strongly about it. One of the things that we're doing about it, I'm general counsel for several Latino leadership organizations, for the League of Cities, the Latino Caucus of the League of Cities, which are the city council, for the community college trustees, and for many years for the K-12 trustees, and I know so many superintendents. One complaint that every organization was saying is, well, you know, we don't have a voice, we're operating in silos. We're not talking to each other. And so that's one of the things what I came to Michael about. Let's start this Latino Leadership and Policy Institute, because I suggested, hey, why don't we all get in the same room and talk to each other and support each other's efforts, because there's so few of us. You guys in the city, you got your issues, and if we can have our folk over here support you, you support us over here. And what I'm very pleased about the Policy Institute is, and I'm looking at the numbers, but I think we're going to be able to say that that summit is going to represent 80 to 90% of the Latino elected officials below the level of assembly in the state. So that whatever we come out of there can be, policy prescription and some research. There's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of fumbling around going on, because we all are kind of wondering, why is this happening and what do we do about it? I don't have more answers other than that, well, let's get all in the same room and hash it out. And one of those ways, and a great service that the university is doing, is providing the platform so that those folk can come together and at least start attacking that question. Anyway, that's a start.
So being honest, taking things head on. Dr. Melendez, any thoughts on this question? Ideas to better engage Latinos in the political process in their communities?
Part of it is, and what we used to like to do in school districts is really start empowering parents and the community through leadership training, building a context to how things happen here and what process you need to go through. And if I were to go to France, I'm sure I'd have to learn how you do things in France. Same here. I mean, people and many of the community members that I worked with in my school districts were immigrants, so they were learning, how a system works here. And I think by empowering and teaching and providing leadership training, mentorship from sort of the entry level all the way up the system, I think we can help continue to build. There is a lot of leaders out there. It's just that we haven't coalesced as well as we could.
Another question from the audience: are there any cultural barriers that young Latinos should be aware of as they seek positions of leadership in our society? I don't know if we've really hit on this. Cultural barriers that young Latinos should be aware of as they aspire for leadership.
The barriers are going to be always there. And for me, in my personal experience, I am a foreign graduate, and when I came to this country, it was extremely difficult. First of all, that I thought that my English was very good, and my English was not good. Second, everybody thought that I was a Mexican. I said, no, I am from Peru. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. Be Mexican, I'm from Peru. Say, okay. And now it's a little bit different after 30 years. But initially, for my career, was difficult. And I feel that I was discriminated. Something that in my country is something that you don't see. But if you see, well, it's basically under the table. But that type of, I will say, people against you make me stronger. And those are the challenges, I think, that through your life, you that are, that are very young students, you are going to go through. And it's something that is going to make your character stronger. And you will remember, when you are going to be successful, that, it's something that is good because you really see that the effort that you put in became better in your career and also in your personal life. This is something that I always like to say. A good leader should have a balance between your professional life and your personal life. That is how you are successful. You can be an excellent doctor, but if your life at home is not good, you are not going to operate okay. You are going to start thinking in your problems. And the good leaders are those who they have that balance. Now to reach that balance is extremely difficult, but you can do it. I did. My son-in-law did. and it's something that all of you can do it. That is going to make you stronger. Your children are going to see something that they are going to become something very good for the future. Because remember that family is the best school for all of us. And I always say that.
Other thoughts?
Okay. Cultural barriers. In the Latino community, I can say that we have a number of cultural barriers. One of them, and probably the largest, is we don't support our girls as much. We do not support our women as much. Your story, you sure you and my wife didn't talk? Because it was so identical to my wife's story about the counselor. You know, she scored, this is the old SAT scores, she scored 1,400. She got double 700s on her thing, and the counselor told her, you know, that was racism, right? I think, yeah, right. But the other part of the problem was that her parents, our culture is we don't want our children that far away from us. We don't support our girls going away from us. And if you're Mayan, they don't support anybody going more than 30 minutes from the house, you know. So, I had a classmate of mine, other story. But so the cultural one is like we don't support 50% of our opportunities. We only support the way, we don't support as enough. Now, of course, there are some parents that do. But we have huge numbers where our girls just aren't given the same opportunities as our boys. And we don't let them go away. And we need to sometimes. So that's number one. Number two, we don't yet have exposure to opportunity. My father, we are so focused on surviving wherever we're at that we don't know how to prosper. And sometimes our families don't even know how to make the investments to prosper. It's not that they don't want to. We don't even know what they are. In my family, it was a big deal that I was a lawyer, and Harvard, what's that? I mean, okay. And they had no idea what that meant. No clue. So that when you come and you try to say to families, hey, your person should be in the Ivy League. What's the Ivy League? And no context, no idea about what the opportunities are. So that's on that side. On the other side, we've been dealing with for decades this problem of, and for lack of a better word, I'll call it the stain, not on us, of affirmative action that people think that we have as a result of affirmative action. We had to deal with people having, let me rephrase it. When I interviewed lawyers for my law firm, I would ask them the question of, they have fabulous credentials, why are they interviewing with me? Because I discovered one thing, you had to work harder, and the reason you had to work harder as a minority-owned firm was because our credentials were suspect. It didn't matter that I was Harvard, that my partner is Stanford, that another partner is University of Chicago. Didn't matter. Our credentials were suspect because they said, you got slack cut for you going in. And that is a big head trip on the kids going in. And I wanted to find out whether they had, as I was interviewing them, whether they had found their way through the mine trap. Okay. Because there's a lot of numbers thrown at you, a lot of you got slack cut for you, right? Well, I was one of 13 out of 550 in my class. And, if I got introspective and crazy, I could say, well, did I deserve to be here? And the answer is there are 550 people. They could have had another 550 that could be there. I did know one thing, that I was one of the best Latino students in my class that year in the country, period. And the conclusion was 13 Mexicans deserve to be at Harvard. I don't know how the test was rigged, but, I think we get 13. The crazy thing is that when we went back, and I was there in 2007, and I said, what are the numbers like? And you'd think, hey, a lot more, a lot of education. 9. Exactly, that's what we said. And then the way they were covering it was, we got to talk. The way they were covering it later was that they then said, well, but we have a lot more. Why? Well, they counted Spaniards. They counted people from all the other, what I'm talking about. So we have 45. And we said, but how many Mexicans? 9. We had 13 my year. We're going the wrong way. So there isn't a sense, I don't know, I almost get the sense of, we've done that, been there, we don't need to do anymore. So, I think we run into problems on both sides. So, I'll give Thelma a chance.
And I agree. The last 2 years when I was in Santa Ana, we struggled a lot with our young Latinas and parents not wanting them to go very far, and had to intervene and have some conversations. But what I see has really changed in 35 years is that I told you my story, right? But there were more males that ended up going. And what I'm seeing now is that Latino males aren't going either. So we've got the females and the males. Last year, we had one male valedictorian out of 7 schools, right? And Latino. And so there is also that, our young men of color are now facing the very same challenges that when I was a young girl, they weren't facing at that level. I don't know if it's numbers, I don't know if but it's clearly many different societal factors that are causing our young men not to be successful. So I think that is something that was not as blatant as it is now.
On a hopeful side, I will share with you, and I look at the folk in the room, and I'm like, I can't tell you how happy I am that you're here, but you represent our hope, and what we didn't have, you will have, and that there are a whole bunch of us out there that are looking to support you, when you get to us, so.
I am agree with him. It's just, I never had the chance until today to be in front to Latino students. Well, the students that I see, many of them are Latinos. At least they look Latinos.
That guy is. I can tell.
And
I heard that.
this is something very, very good for us, and give us a tremendous hope, because somebody is going to need to follow our steps in the future.
Thank you, Dr. Carrion. What makes this program so special is the intimacy that's created by all of you coming here tonight to listen, the empathy coming back and forth across the space. We have learned so much from each other, and we learned so much from leaders like yourselves. We're as a Catholic university, we are devoted to service, and we're so grateful that tonight you came in service to us to share. So I want to ask certainly the audience and all of the folks gathered here to join me in thanking our speakers for coming here tonight.